When you're making your outer cut, you want to calculate the radius based on 1.5 inches, which is 1.5 divided by 2, which is 3/4 of an inch. Now that you want to make the inside cut, since you'll be in between the router bit and the pin when you're making your measurement, you want to subtract half of the guide pin thickness, which is half of 1/8. 1/8 is 0.125. Half of 0.125 is 0.063, so you'll minus 0.063. So you're going to want to set your calipers to 0.687 inches. So what you want to do is turn your calipers on, close it, and set it to 0. And what you do is open it up to 0.687. 6, 8, 7. Takes a little bit to dial it in, that last bit, so takes a little patience. Alright. And then the set screw will lock in that measurement. Alright, next thing you want to do is have your router bit sticking up approximately 1/4 inch, and then having your set screw loose. Bring in your calipers with the set screw locked and bring it right up to the edge. You don't want to dig it in and chip your router bit, but you want to bring it in and bring your router bit in right up until the point. Apply very little pressure. Set your set screw so it's just a little bit loose, and then spin your router bit so that the crown of the router bit, when it turns, will be exactly the measurement that you want, that you set with your calipers. In this case, it's going to be 0.687 inches. Since we've switched materials, we're going to want to reset the depth gauge. And so what we're going to do is zero out the router bit by touching the surface of the material. I have a scrap piece of the ABS that we're using here. Bring the cutter or the depth guide back to the tallest point. Put this in between. Bring the depth stop back down. A little bit of play, and then I'll let it set the set screw nice and tight. This should slide right in there without any binding, and then we're good to go. Since we're working with harder materials, acrylic or ABS, I would change the cut depth to about 1/8 inch per pass rather than 1/4 inch, because the denser material is a little bit harder to cut. On the ABS and acrylic, you're going to want to switch to a upward cutting bit or an acrylic cutting bit. Instead of forcing the chips down, which will melt back upon itself, it'll actually bring the chips up so that it doesn't clog up and melt. Now you want to very carefully remove the pin from the piece, because depending on the tightness of the center hole, it may want to pull the ABS piece out of the center. So when you're pulling it out, you want to be very careful, or use a putty knife and pry it out of there. Like we said, we're going to make the interior diameter of the ring 1 3/8, and the decimal equivalent of 1 3/8 is 1.375. To find the half of that, 1.375 divided by 2 is 0.6875. And what we're going to do with the calipers is measure the outside edge of the guide pin and the router bit. And so what we're going to do is add half of the pin diameter, which is going to be 0.63 again, to this number. So plus 0.063. And so, well, slightly over 3/4 inch. So 0.7505 is the measurement we're going to put on our calipers. Once again, we close the calipers, set the 0, and now we're going to aim for 0.7505. Again, that 5/10,000ths of an inch isn't really going to make a difference, but it takes a while. while to get it dialed. All right, 1/7. So with the router bit sticking out about 1/4 inch, we'll loosen the set screw, put the calipers on the outside of the pin and the router bit. Pull ever so slightly to put a little tension on there. Set the set screw lightly and then turn the router bit to make sure that we're not binding up. And once we have that setting set, we can crank down on the set screw and make another pass.